we've got some practice now.
Yeah, really.
We're getting pretty good at this.
Yeah, we are.
Mm-hmm.
So, hello there. Have you found yourself to be lonely? Did you know that loneliness is an epidemic? They're writing about it on some of the really big national newspapers. So today, Barry and I are going to talk about how loneliness is an epidemic and how to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the newsstreamingnetwork.com, WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network Radio, TV and podcast #1 internet singles talk network. And this is Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Christine. So it's going to be a good topic today.
I think it's really going to be good because often when I talk to people who felt taken advantage of when they started dating or when they were using online and people took wrote to them and they turned out not to be good people, it's often because they were feeling lonely, which can make us feel kind of desperate. So loneliness is really a problem. And I think COVID pushed it over the edge. I really think that was a hard thing for so many people. I think the introverts did a little better with it, but they still missed having contact with even the few people.
It's true. And this is now the 5th anniversary of when the lockdown started. This is probably an apropos time to talk about it. Although I'd change the word from desperate to maybe just needy, maybe less of a threatening word, because desperation doesn't sound healthy at all. But the thing we'll speak to, because we did an episode last week about being single for so long. So in a way, this will play into that, and we'll have a conversation that overlaps that. But the thing about being lonely, and I want to make a distinction right up front, is that being lonely is not the same as being alone. And we will talk about it more in the episode, but I want to make sure people get the understanding that loneliness is a feeling, whereas alone is basically physical space, so to speak. So I want to just put that up front. But yeah, let's dive into this.
Well, because I've heard people, I was trying to think if it had happened to me, and I was younger, that people say, I feel lonely in a crowd. Or sometimes people have even said they feel lonely when they're in a relationship with someone. And I think loneliness is usually caused because we don't feel seen or heard. We don't feel like we have a connection. We don't feel like we have bonding. We don't have things in common with people. We don't feel like we're moving in the same path. When we talk, people don't understand what we're saying. We're not on the same wavelength. They're on the same page. And I think that can cause a lot of loneliness, even when you're out and about with people, if you're not with your people.
Yes, and.
Good, I love your and.
Well, because the thing for me about this is, because I spend a lot of time alone, and I also find myself when I'm in crowds sometimes feeling alone, not lonely, but again, difference between alone and lonely. And so recognizing the fact is that my participation in the crowd it feels like it's going to prove something. It doesn't feel like it has any value to do that. So it's okay in ways to walk away. But the thing I want to speak to is that, that a lot of times what happens as well when you're in crowds and you feel lonely in a crowd sort of thing is because, frankly, we're actually not in a relationship with ourselves. And this has actually come up a lot in my recent work with clients. I've been talking about it with my audience a lot. Is about relationship with self is the primary focus, because in every relationship, the one we have with ourselves is the one that we have all the time. So if we don't stay connected to ourselves or we abandon ourselves, it can feel very distraught. It can feel very lonely. And this epidemic, I think, a lot of times for people is they think in a lot of ways, it's almost like the proof of existing is other people being in our lives, and really forgetting that we can have a healthy relationship with ourselves, which doesn't require anybody else. Now, that's in the dating thing we talked about last week, but also in life in general, it's like, can you be in a place where you can enjoy your own company? Can you be okay with yourself? So when you're around other people, it's great, but if you're not around people, it's okay too. That's the ideal. That's the goal, so to speak. So the epidemic of loneliness, we'll talk about definitely, and we'll talk about steps to get out of that place as we go through the episode.
It's such a good point, Barry. Thank you for making that, because one of the things that's come up lately is the person that's my client has done a lot of work. They've done a lot of healing, and they are in love with this person, and the person can't receive it. And it's often because I said, if they only love themselves, if we think of 100% tank, if they can only love themselves 60%, because they think there's stuff lacking. There's things about them that aren't enough, lovable enough, fat, skinny enough, smart enough, whatever the enough thing is. You could try to pour 100% in, but we can only receive. We only believe and receive what we believe. So if we don't believe we are lovable enough 100%, I don't care how much you think we're lovable and how much you love us, we cannot take it in. There's no space for it. So yes, connecting with yourself, loving yourself, knowing that you're enough, however you are today, whatever you need to work on, would like to work on, would like to grow, everybody needs to still be okay enough today. And I think that has a lot to do with the loneliness, because it also keeps people at home thinking, well, nobody's going to like me and I won't fit in and I don't know enough to go to that thing because that's not my area of expertise. So we limit ourselves and get even more lonely because now we're seeing all the lacking of what we are.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a trap we fall into, because as we've talked about in many episodes about the codependent trap, is we do fall into this place of almost needing somebody else to make us feel whole. That, when you went, like, again, back to Jerry Maguire, you complete me that whole mindset, which we definitely do not agree with. But the understanding is that we get wired to think that when we get somebody in our lives, we will feel whole and complete. And so if that person is not there, or we're not in a relationship, we feel devoid. We feel like we're missing something. And so that is the trap we fall into. And so it's very easy to fall into the trap of being lonely, or feeling rather that we're lonely, because we don't have somebody else to fill that gap we think we have in ourselves, because frankly, we didn't fill up that gap ourselves.
Yes. So we've talked about it before, that you need to become a whole person on your own, feeling, and yes, there's always things. People go, but I'm still have things to work on. Yes. And you're already a whole person, and you're going to make more. You're going to learn more. You're going to be more. You're going to experience more. Because then when you want to get in relationship with another whole person, you get to create this other third whole thing, the relationship, which is a whole. And then you are better, because Barry and I are big believers that, yes, you can be even more in a relationship. You can have even more in a relationship. We're partnership of any sort with the right person expands everything, because you don't know everything. They bring other strengths. They make up for your weaknesses. You get to share your strength. You first have to decide, though, that you are enough. And I think a lot of the loneliness is because we don't think we're enough. And we can come up with all sorts of evidence about why we're not enough and why we should be sitting at home. And I'm going to sound like Dr. Phil. How's that working for you? Are you feeling less lonely? So maybe you might want to think a different way. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the part is also a lot of times, and it's mainly because of our culture, I think, provides that. I know that I had this feeling when I was definitely younger. When I was in a relationship, and I would, it's funny because it's like we do this when we don't have something, we want something. Is that when I was not in a relationship, I would see all these relationships around me that I wasn't in, and so I felt like I had, when I felt like I had a deficit. So that limiting mindset just becomes a downward spiral. And I think one of the reasons we have this loneliness epidemic is because people don't stop the downward crashing they have. That basically takes them down this loneliness spiral where they get lower and lower and lower and feel less and less whole. And it's so frustrating to look from the outside, because it's like, I know I can help them. I know this is reality, because none of us, frankly, are missing anything. But we just think we are because we're not in a relationship. And it's this, unfortunately, imprinted mindset that we think somehow we're not complete unless we're in love. And it's like, well, here's the thing. Love yourself, which we talked about many times, and that can change. Anyway, you're going to jump in, please.
Oh, no, I am so exclamation point, underline, bold, put it on a big billboard somewhere. Love yourself first.
Yeah.
Believe that you are worthwhile. Believe that you have lots to offer the world, that you do have lots to offer to another person, that you are not lacking. Now, we certainly do work with people who they are missing some things. They had a hard childhood. They've had a bad breakup. Well, then come talk to us first, and then we'll help you repair that. So then you're going to be whole again. Nothing is indelibly broken. You see people that are out there being so successful in their life that when you look at first blush, you're like, how are they managing that? And you really look at, wow, I have more than they do. And why are they succeeding? Because they figured out who they are and what they have is enough. And then they come to the world with that, and the world goes, seems like enough to me.
And And that's the thing.
Go ahead.
Sorry, after you finish what you're saying.
So the other part I wanted to mention is that what I've done and what I encourage people to do is when you see happy, healthy relationships out there, go, oh, good. That means they're out there. And I want that, please. I want that, please. And what do I need to do next so that I'm going to put myself in the right place, in the right frame of mind, and get myself to feeling enough so that I can have that? Because often people think, oh, there's a limited amount. No. The more there are, I think.
Absolutely. And the fact I'll underscore that is that it's like the thing with this is the thing I remember years ago. There's a part of our brain that's called the reticular activating system that talks about many times. I'm not sure how true this is because using like workshops, not necessarily in science, but what I've heard is that basically that part of us is basically like an hyperactive awareness, like radar that picks up certain things. So, for example, that a mother with a newborn baby will sleep through the sound of a fire engine going by, but as soon as the baby turns over and whimpers, she'll be wide awake because she's tuned into that. It's that sort of frequency of what the RAS, as it's called, is tuned into. Same thing's true in the world, is that if you're look around if you're listening to us or watching us, if you look around your room or you look around where you are and say, look for the color yellow, you'll see yellow everywhere, but you didn't notice it before because you're now tuned into it. Same thing's true with relationships. Is the thing about seeing other relationships, as you said, and I want to underscore this, is that means your awareness is on the fact there are relationships, which is a good sign. You're seeing relationships, which is encouraging, saying there will be one for me too. It's not a thing about they're out there, therefore I can't have one. No, they're out there, which means I can have one. So flip the script inside and start recognizing that what you're seeing out there is affirming what you can have, because that's the best way of living life.
So I'm going to underscore that because often we're like, we had a bad experience. Well, all men or all women, they're all a bunch of poops, and I only see terrible people on the online dating, and I only see so that's what you're going to keep seeing. Promise you. It's not that there's more. It's really not that there's more. As you said, my husband was in the car business and said the least popular color was blue. And so I tell people, spend the next week looking for blue cars. You're going to be amazed how many there are if you're looking for them. But if you're not looking for them, you'll hardly ever, you won't even notice a blue car. And the same way that you said. So if you flip the switch, as you mentioned, and you're like, look at the grocery store, at the people that are holding hands. Look at the people out in the world that are speaking nicely to each other. Ignore the ones that are having a bad time. Look for the ones that are getting along. Even if they don't get along other times, they're getting along in front of you. Appreciate that. And say, I want that. I want somebody that appreciates me. I want somebody that wants to hold my hand. I want somebody that I want to hold their hand. I want to have more laughter. I want to laugh with somebody. Look how they're laughing. I want that. And the more you concentrate on that, the more you're going to see and the more it's going to show up in your life. So it's a conscious decision. It sometimes can be easier to look at the hard things than the easy things. So you do have to make a conscious effort to look for the positive. I tell women the first week we work together, if they're not already in a relationship, especially in the world, notice men doing nice things. Even if they're not your type, even if they're way out of your age range, even if hopefully they're with somebody, and go, look at all the nice men doing nice things. Because the next weekend they come back, they don't feel so negative about men.
Yeah. Oh, it's so simple. And that's the thing is, because again, like what you notice is what you'll notice. And so if you're looking for all the reasons why you shouldn't have a relationship, you'll see all the negative reasons for not having a relationship. So as you said, it's like when you look around and see those of the opposite sex or what you're attracted to out in the world doing nice things, it might go against what you've been holding as a belief for the last few months. So this is intentional rewiring that's done by simple awareness, simply noticing. And so that's what is so simple about this, so elegant, is that you don't have to like do massive transformational work. Just notice what's out there. And then if you start saying, what I want to notice is this, notice that's out there now. And this is another thing too, again, back to that thing is when you start thinking about what car you want to get, if you're getting a new car, if you start deciding on the car you want to get, you're going to notice that car everywhere. Yeah. Same thing's true. It's all the same things happening here is your awareness notices confirmation and resonance of what you're looking for. So if you are thinking about being lonely, well, you might start seeing how other people look lonely too, because that's what your wiring is. So the good news is you can use your awareness as a reflection of what you're focusing on. So you can say, you know what, that's not what I want. Let me change it. So if you're noticing lots of relationships, that's a good sign because you're, again, noticing what's possible for yourself being reflected back to you by what's around you.
For sure. And I hear one of the other reasons people feel lonely is nobody calls me, nobody asks me to do anything. And it sounds so trite and crass, but the telephone works both ways.
Yes.
And sometimes I've had relationships where they have done a lot of the asking, and I'm always happy to go, but I don't think about it. And then there's times when I've done more of the asking. And there's been a couple times I have to go, do I like doing all the asking? Do I wish they would do more of the asking? I'd ask them and they go, I just don't. Do I still want to see them? Sure. So I go, okay, I decide that I'm fine with asking because I like doing stuff with them. And they like going out with me. They like doing stuff with me. They don't think about me to ask. Oh, well, I'm not the first person on there. Okay. But they're happy to do something with me. So sometimes we can get caught up in this nuanced of it can only be this way. And that can cause lots of loneliness. I mean,
Right.
see if you can get a group of people together that seem to have some interests and see if they all want to get together. Because being the arranger, you get control. Where are you going to go? What hours are you going to spend? What kind of things are going to happen? So I think that can help you start feeling more in control of your life if you say, okay, I'm going to do the arranging instead of, because then if somebody else does it, they might not do it exactly the way you want it, and there's a whole nother reason to get all pissy.
Unfortunately, there's lots of reasons to justify anything we want. That's the thing. You can justify your behavior no matter which way you do it. So back to loneliness for a second. One of the things I think we feel lonely oftentimes because we're not fulfilling our own emotional needs. And we sometimes feel like we need someone else's shoulder to cry on or someone else to hold us, someone else to feel safe. Yes, that's great to have that. When you're in a relationship, enjoy that. But if you're not in a relationship now, you can't find it. As you said before, phone works both ways. You can reach out to your friends, loved ones who aren't romantic partners and just lean into that support. Because 90% of the people times out there, they're going to support you and be there for you if you're willing to ask for the help. But the other part also is how can you be your own best friend? Most of us don't tend to think that way, but frankly, if you could look at ways, and what I was just doing is asking the question without trying to answer it for yourself, just simply ask yourself, how can I be my own best friend? And let the question sit there. Because what happens is your unconscious mind will start going, well, we do this, we can do this, we can do this, and all these different ideas will pop up. Because what's really happening is you're inquiring of your own inner wisdom, which is much smarter than you give it credit for, to give you answers and ideas and guidance. Because you might say, how can I be my own best friend? And it might say, go down the corner shop and have coffee. And the funny thing is, you're going to have coffee down the local shop. Maybe nothing will happen, but maybe you suddenly bump into somebody and have a whole new conversation that you didn't have before because you were stuck at home feeling sorry for yourself. So these sort of tips we're giving you sound so simple, but they're profoundly powerful and surprisingly easy to do, and they don't cost you anything. So try them on for size.
I like the question of what do I need today and how can I do it for myself?
Mm-hmm.
What do I need today from someone else? And what can I do myself? And do it. I need to go have outside time. I need to have a phone conversation. I need to take a bath. I need to take a nap. I mean, do that because we didn't know how to do that as kids. We do that a lot for the little kids in my family. So as an adult, it's a really nice question to ask yourself.
Yeah, it's so easy. And the great thing about this is it can do any time you want. And so the key thing is when you're starting to feel lonely, is to remember this. Let me try this on, because a lot of times we unfortunately get into that spiral again, that downward spiral. We want to reinforce what we don't have, and there's no way out of that. But we're going to take a break in a moment, and we'll talk a lot more about ways to get out of it. But before we do that, we want to share our how you can find us on social media.
Sure. So the best way to find me on social media is to go to my website, which is www.theperfectcatch.com, and scroll to the bottom, and all the little social media icons are sitting there ready and waiting for you to click on them. I have Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram and YouTube and Pinterest. So I would be so happy for you to go look at all my social media. And Barry, how would people find your social media?
Similarly, you can go to my site, but I'll give you the extra direct ways to get there as well. But if you go to, basically, my name is Barry Selby, as you may have got from the title of this podcast. But basically on social media, my name, Barry Selby, is how you find me on YouTube, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Pinterest, Blue Sky. I'm trying what I'm on right now that doesn't have that. The only one's different is Instagram and Threads, because that is the real Barry Selby, because my original account got hacked. But basically, look for me on social media. You can follow me, you can like my stuff, subscribe, all those different things you can do, different places, different buttons, and you can check out all my stuff.
And we would love for you to do that.
Yeah,
So we're going to take a break and have a commercial break for our wonderful station. And then we're going to come back and talk about more remedies for loneliness.
indeed. See you in a moment.
And we're back. The Let's Talk Dating Show with Christine Berry. And today we're talking about that loneliness. Truly, it's an epidemic. And then we're talking about ways to stop it. So we've talked about a lot of reasons why people do feel lonely, whether they're alone by themselves or out in a crowd or even sometimes in a relationship, and how it's a real feeling and how it can just spiral and get worse. The more you let it happen, the more you go on with it, it can just turn into worse, so much worse.
Absolutely.
So now we're going to talk about more ways that you can get past it and get through it, because it is always an inside job. It just is. You get to decide why you're feeling lonely and what you could do about it in every circumstance. Because there was a sign I saw once, I ended up giving it to a friend who's one of those camper, fisher, goes hiking for months person. And it said, people who are wandering are often not lost. And I loved
Yeah,
that's what he does. I mean, he has a point A and then he has to get to the next place where they've shipped his food because he's gone for so long. But he just meanders wherever he feels like it. And it really works for him. And they said he never feels lonely. I mean, sometimes he runs into people, but not on purpose. And he likes it. It really works for him. So to figure out what is your pace, what keeps you feeling your best self, what keeps you upright, and then spend as much time with yourself and other people as you need, and only because it makes you feel even more whole after you've gotten yourself to a whole place, and now you're going to feel even more whole with other people.
yeah. That's the power of this. Basically, is that you can really utilize your own skills and have amazing things happen. I mean, there's some social things you can do as well. I mean, it is interesting because I want to do two things. One is talk about places you can go and do things, but then get to the other part of it, because we talked earlier about being lonely in a crowd. So I'll get to that in a second too. But the thing I'll say is, I know you're a big proponent of meetup groups. So definitely you can find things to do out in the world where if you're not in a relationship, there's still things that singles can do. You can go out social gatherings. You can go do dance lessons, go to country bars and do line dancing, things like that, which you don't need a partner for. It's all those things you can do to get out in the crowd. But again, if you're feeling lonely in a crowd, that's not going to help you either way. So this is why I'm talking about self-relationship one more time. Because a lot of my work this year, and I've got a new quiz, which I'll talk about at the end of the show, like a self-relationship quiz, and there's 7 pillars in there. And each one of those pillars is an area you can focus on just doing inner work with. For example, one of those is basically self-trust. And I got a whole course built on self-trust, because that's one of those things that we tend to fall apart on, is we feel lonely because we can't trust ourselves. Maybe we made mistakes in the past, or we don't trust, we picked but right. We might trust that we don't have the right choice in relationships, or different things. But trust is a renewable resource. Sometimes we feel like we've blown trust, we can't do anything again. But the truth is, there are so many ways you can build trust. And again, online course, I'm not going to break down how all it works. But one of the simplest things you do in building trust is it starts to rebuild your boundaries. Because one of the things that I know, discovered in dating relationships and coaching a lot of clients, is their boundaries have been weakened by bad relationship experiences. Not necessarily a bad partner, but just bad experiences, which means that their trust of themselves is diminished, because without boundaries, you don't feel like you've got a firm structure in which to build yourself back up again. So your trust is diminished. So if you're looking at your life and saying, I don't feel I can trust myself, that's an area to focus on. So there's many different areas. And I say I've got 7 in my quiz, which I'll talk about later on, but also things that I focus on with my clients, is that these are little pieces of the puzzle that make your self-reliance and your lack of loneliness a renewable resource. You can regrow your self-relationship so you don't feel lonely anymore.
Oh, we both talk about this pillar so often of trusting yourself is so essential. And it might be that you were never taught that as a kid. Your parents were untrustworthy. They didn't keep their word. We give them all grace that they did the best they could. And now that you're an adult, you can make decisions about what you're going to believe now and the way you're going to treat yourself now and other people. And so
Right.
one of the things that's such a pillar is confirming and reaffirming that you can trust yourself, that your instincts and intuition are 100% accurate. And that usually when we get ourselves in trouble, it's because we ignore them.
Yeah.
Because we're scared, or they're really cute, or we have all this chemistry. And then we go against this instinct that's screaming no. We're the only mammal that stops and sometimes moves forward when it's something that our body is screaming danger, danger, danger.
Yeah.
So then we think, well, I can't trust myself. No, if you relax into what is my body, my mind, my emotions, my instincts, my intuition really telling me, you will never get steered wrong. So it's a
Right.
really important thing to just keep exercising. And you and I talk about it all the time because it is a cornerstone to not feeling lonely and to knowing you can trust yourself 100%.
Yeah. And I think honestly, one thing you said, I want to make sure I underscore this point, because the thing is, when we get to the point, sometimes we feel like, I can't trust myself. It's like, well, the truth is that's not accurate. What's happening is you don't trust yourself. Because if you can't trust yourself, it's an impossibility to overcome. But if you don't trust yourself, that's a choice point you've made. And as you said, absolutely, that our innate instincts, our gut instincts that we suppress and ignore because we think we know better, sometimes we'll get ourselves in trouble. Because we have incredible gifts innately in our human bodies that can feel what's true, what's not, and you can trust that innately. But then we override it thinking, well, I think it's the best choice, like you're saying, because they're cute or whatever the reason is. And we make an error in judgment, and we make a mistake, so to speak. And then we get to the place of saying, well, I can't trust myself because that obviously I choose wrong. It's like, no, you didn't trust yourself, which is why you chose wrong. So now the good news is you can start trusting yourself from a whole new place. So all the things we're talking about are renewable and resettable. So do the right thing.
I love the renewable part. I am going to so remember that. I hadn't thought
Absolutely.
about it that way. It's so true.
Yeah.
So if you're feeling lonely, which is rampant, then really get clear about, well, what do I need? Do I need to have somebody to talk to, a professional, a close friend? Do I need to just go do something with other people? And then how can I make it feel the most safe? Because I'm now just putting my toe out there. Go do some volunteer thing where you don't have to be the center of attention. You don't even have to talk to people much if you don't want to. You can just feel like you're giving something and getting something back because you're having a giving heart. And you know that other people are having a better life because you were there doing something for them. Just little tiny steps. Because then when you come home and you go, okay, what did I do? Wow, that was a good thing. And wow, I was around people and it wasn't scary. And I talked a little, but I didn't have to talk a lot. Then you will start feeling the self-confidence, which is really helpful. And that will help lower the loneliness. And then you'll be brave about, I'm going to go do that same thing again, or I'm going to do a new thing again. So you do your inner work, and then you need to dare. Be brave. Find the least scary thing and go do one not scary thing. You never know what could come of it. And often, most of the time, there's not a negative side to it. Even if you go, yeah, that's not my thing, I'm going to tell you, if you can say, but I was brave and I did it and it turned out it wasn't my thing, you're going to get benefits from just, I was really brave and did it.
The thing about that's the thing is, when you are brave, what you start discovering is you start building your self-esteem, you start trusting yourself again. The thing is that oftentimes we're afraid to do anything because we're actually not, and I suspect it's one of the cases, by the way, I'm just going to say this now, is as part of us feels like if we stay where we are, we're safe to be in the untrusting. Whereas if we risk something to break that cycle, we can't confirm what we believe is true, that we're not trustworthy. So the idea of rebuilding things by doing things that strengthen your own, it's like building a new muscle again. It's such a gift to ourselves. And frankly, we should all be doing it. Become better at being yourself, because you deserve it and you're worthy of it.
And so one of the things that can cause that damage to your self-confidence is if you've had a really hard breakup. You really liked them a lot. You thought they liked you. It turned out they didn't. Sure, take a couple days, lick your wounds, and then you need to not just sit around, because that's when the loneliness will start taking over. And it's
Yeah.
also a challenge for widowed people, because now you really like them and they didn't want to leave, but now they're gone forever. And to seek out, a grief group or a widows group or something where you're not sitting at home lonely, being alone and lonely. Seek out some place that will be welcoming and connecting, and you can just sit there and do nothing. You can just sit there and cry. So for when your relationship ends, however it does,
Hmm.
that's a hard thing. It is. So we want you to take this information and go do something about it. Go be with people in some way, because that is the short circuit to make the loneliness not take over, I think. Don't you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing you said is so beautiful about the idea being if you're going through grief or loss because of a breakup or because of a death of a partner, there are resources you can get out to support yourself, like widowers groups, in person, virtual, all sorts of ways, which will give you back to yourself in a way, because they'll let you know you're okay. They'll let you know that you're going through a grief process, which is natural. And so, what they provide is almost like I won't say a warm blanket, but it's like having something you can just lean into where you feel supported and be cared for, which is basically what sometimes you need. And the challenge is oftentimes with people is when we go through some sort of loss or we don't have what we want, we shut down and we think we can't have anything. This is, again, when you're feeling that way, is the best time to reach out and get support wisely and choose the right sort of thing. But again, the resources are out there. And so it's behooves you to take the chance, to take the time to put yourself in a place where you can be supported. And ultimately, when you do that, you'll find yourself supporting other people too, which is going to be a two-way street. So it's going to be a great thing to do.
Yeah. And one of the big good things that came out of COVID was Zoom, because
Hmm.
I know lots of people who have made such good friends across the country because they go to these regular Zoom meetings and they feel connected. They feel like there's a person in the room with them. It helps, and they can just, text them now and then. They feel connected, and it really has short-circuited the loneliness part when you
Yeah.
find people to connect with. So reach out, look for Zoom groups, look them through Facebook, for them through Meetup. You will find your people to help you stop feeling lonely.
Yeah. In fact, I mean, right at the beginning of the pandemic, one of the things I noticed, there was an app that showed up out of the blue pretty early on, I think, the pandemic now, which was called Clubhouse. And I found it through a friend of mine invited to it. And I have built friendships through that, which is an audio only app. So there's no video. There's an audio, like it's almost having like online conference rooms in a way. You just jump in and you have conversations and people listen in. But that was a place I discovered some people I never knew before who became such close friends to me, which some I've never seen in person. Some I've seen through Zoom since then or through other mediums. But the recognition is that there's ways that you can connect and build new friendships, new business relationships, and the other things too that can happen through these apps. I mean, I know that there were in fact some romantic relationships happening through those too, which is interesting because you're going through an audio app that people has a picture that's like a postage stamp size of the person. So try falling in love with that. No, I think because you can also get through their social media through that as well. But again, the thing is that the platform was a place to meet people, like just be on the phone with them in a way, because you're not seeing them online video wise. So there's lots of ways you can get connected to community, whether it is through a meetup group or it's through Zoom or through an audio app. There are different ways of doing it. The thing is, you sometimes need to take one step forward to meet them.
Yep, that brave thing. Boy, that brave thing. The things in your life, if you think back, that you really wanted and you were afraid, but you did it anyway, like the Susan Jeffers book, feel the fear and do it anyway, that you did it. So figure out what encouraged you to do it then. What
Hmm.
what you went for the job interview, or you went and made that hard phone call, or you did something that you were like, oh, whatever that was the impetus that encouraged you to do it. Find out something that you would be just as encouraged. I want to go give back to animals. I want to give back to children. I want to help other people that I've been through this hard thing and I know I could give them information to help spur you on to reach out and just start connecting with other people. Because we keep talking about, building yourself up, and yes, do that on your own, and then reach out to something else that's going to help you heal, help you start building up. help you start feeling more whole. Because, grief over a loss of anything, a pet, a love that, you just got divorced or you broke up or somebody died, it's a wound, and you need to salve it and you need to heal it. And part of the healing is to interact with other people, to have them give to you and you give to them. And I've seen such interesting relationships bond over, all their dogs died and they all got on this Facebook group and they were like, oh, it's so hard and I don't want to get another one and it'll be really hard if I do. And it was just, they were all in the same experience and they felt not lonely, even though they missed their heartbeat in the house. And so figuring out how to do that, what is it that you need that you can give back and they can give to you, and find your group. Just a little tiny step will help you be less scared and a little more brave.
Absolutely. In fact, speaking on that one for a second as well, if it's something you can accommodate, is getting a pet can be another way of alleviating your sense of loneliness too. Just having some sort of companion that you don't speak to, but just feels warmth and love from them. Because frankly, they're generally unconditional. Well, dogs are unconditional, cats not so much, but either one is good to have. But the thing being, again, only if you can definitely do so. In fact, something you can do, like friends of mine do, is they foster animals who are coming out of shelters before they get placed in permanent homes. So if you can't have a pet forever, you could just be a temporary foster parent to a dog or a cat that's going to be placed later on as a way to just give back as well. So I want to say, we've given you quite a long list. You hope you've taken notes through the episode. You can have a long list of things you can do that can alleviate any sense of loneliness. But again, bottom line as well is if you're feeling lonely and outside opportunities aren't helping with that, it's worth looking in the mirror and remembering you are your best friend, your own best companion. And that's the relationship you want to focus on anyway. So definitely reach out if you want support, but also look at what it is you can do for yourself that doesn't require you needing another person, another people, another group, or anything else, because that can start the road to wholeness again.
Oh, such a great note to end on.
Yes.
So if you resonated with any of this, you're feeling lonely, you're feeling bereft, you're feeling empty places in your life, and you hear Barry and I have lots of tools to help you with that. We'd be so happy if you wanted to reach out to us, because both of us offer an opportunity for you to speak with us initially and to work with us. So if you would like to work with me, I'm going to send you back to my website, www.theperfectcatch.com. Everything's in my website. And scroll to the middle where you'll see what's holding you back from love questionnaire, and click on that. There's just 10 brief questions that say where you are now and where you'd like to be. And then you'll have access to my online calendar, and you can schedule a complimentary conversation with me to speak with me directly. And I'll see if I can just give you some tools that will help. Also on my website, you can join my mailing list so you can get a repeat of this podcast as well as information about things I'm doing in my life. And at the top, there's now a new link for my ebook that has dating advice. I think that you would find it very valuable. You can download it for free. You could also send me a personal email at Christine@theperfectcatch.com. And how do people reach you, Barry?
Similarly, I also have a website, which we can tell you about. So my website is my name, which is barryselby.com. And on my website, similar to Christine, I have a place you can click on at the top of the screen, which is I think it says Let's Chat currently. But if you click on the button there, it will take you to my calendar, where you can sign up there, fill out a little form, and it will get a chance for us to have a conversation about where you are, what you're looking for. If I can help you, I can certainly give you some guidance, get you started on the road to restoring your self-respect again. At the bottom of the screen is a link to my email list. You can join there if you want to jump in, become an audience member, follow my work and everything else. I have lots of things coming up and new offerings. In the middle of the screen is my original relationship readiness assessment quiz. So if you're not sure if you're ready for a relationship, take the quiz. So barryselby.com/quiz is how you can get to that. And that will give you a perspective. And in fact, I'm redoing the quiz. There'll be a new version coming out probably in the next month or so. So maybe you want to hold off on that one for now, but do it later on. There's going to be much deeper self-reflection and yet an easier access point. So the relationship readiness quiz is there. Additionally, I have a new quiz, which is what I'm at the 7 pillars for, which is a self-relationship assessment. And that isn't actually a link you can click on, but if you go to barryselby.com/self-quiz, that will give you the chance to go through and do the quiz and really navigate what you're going through. And it gives you a PDF with some really good guidance and steps you can take as well. So worth taking the quiz just for the PDF. Additionally, on my website is my book, which is 50 Ways to Love Your Lover. That's on my website and also on Amazon. And on that page, by the way, is a little audio review done by 2 AI voices, which is fun to watch and listen to. And just check out my website. Lots of content on there. And you can send me an email at barry@barryselby.com if you can reach out directly. But take the quizzes, find out where you are, Either one of us can give you lots of support. And frankly, it's not, you don't need to sit on your own. You can get support.
And we love talking to you. We're here every Thursday at 1 o'clock Pacific and 4 o'clock Eastern. You can chat with us live. We'll be happy to answer your questions. If you watch us on our replay, you can watch us on Roku TV. We'd love for you to subscribe and share it with all of your friends who are having challenges in their relationships. And also, if you don't want to watch us, you can just listen to us, huh, Barry?
Well, you don't want to watch us. If you're not able to watch us, you can listen to us, definitely. But
I know, because we're so cute. Why wouldn't they want to watch us?
Exactly. You can listen to us on the podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, etc. You can binge listen to us. We have tons of episodes. There's over 200 plus episodes now. You should definitely follow us and get lots of content. So if you're driving, hiking, whatever you're doing, you can listen to us, plug yourself in, and catch up on good relationship tips.
And we would just love to have you watch us and chat with us. We'll look forward to seeing you next week. We will be back with another interesting subject about Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry.
See you next week. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.